Hey there. Welcome to Lead Fearlessly, Strategies of Confident Women Leaders, the podcast that will empower you to unleash your inner strength and embrace leadership with confidence. I'm your host, Katie Winchenbach, and I'm excited to have you join us as we dive into the experiences of extraordinary women who've shattered glass ceilings and redefined success on their own terms. Get ready to be motivated, challenged, and equipped with the tools and strategies to lead fearlessly in your own life and career. I am so excited to be here today with Cheryl O'Donoghue. Cheryl is the founder of AspireToSTEAM.org, which provides scholarships and recognition to overlooked young women and girls pursuing STEAM education. In addition to that, she is also the author of 3 books, How to be an Emotionally Intelligent Leader, How to be a Woman in Technology, and How to be a Woman in Business, all of which are must-reads. Cheryl, thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, Katie, I am excited, and I just love your focus of your podcast. It is so needed now more than ever before, so I'm just excited to be here. Hello, everybody.
Thank you so much, Cheryl. We're going to dive right in, and I will have you briefly introduce yourself to our audience, give them a little more info on your background and how you got to where you are today.
Oh, wonderful. Okay. So, I have been on the planet for a while, and I'm going to break down a couple things. First of all, I know people are always curious about titles. So it was about 25 years ago, I got my first C-level role. And since that time, I've been a chief marketing officer, a chief operating officer, a chief communications officer, now a chief executive officer, and a founder of a nonprofit, which thank you for mentioning that on the front end. I'm very passionate about that. And then when I look back at my career, I look at it, I have 5 rather distinct chunks, for lack of a better word, chunks. Yes, this is how we chunked our career out. And I changed it up every 7 years or so. And I never realized that until I was putting a bio together that needed, of course, the time frames. I'm like going, oh, I got a thing with this number 7. So, and in fact, now I'm in a time chunk, if you will, where I've exceeded number 7. So, So if I'm looking back, so I started off my career in tech, and that's really when I experienced, if you will, that overt sexism and bullying. I had felt bullying before, but I never felt overt sexism with bullying. So that was my lesson. And I was very grateful for all my lessons, just so you know. That was what my tech experience and working in the world of tech in Silicon Valley, right when the big boom hit. And then my next chunk, was banking. I was in financial services for over 7 years. And that's where I got to face discrimination straight on, as most know still to this day in leadership positions. Banking still can be a fairly male-dominated industry. Back then, discrimination, wow. And it was covert and overt. So yay me. Then we moved into the next chunk, which is really corporate education and training for a global organization. And that's where I was working more with very highly educated people, working more with women, which I loved. However, that's where jealousy and really working with people who were friendly to your face, but running a lot of interference behind the scenes. And part of that was just because I think that as women, during that time period, we were coming from a place of scarcity, like there weren't many leadership positions. So when someone was in a leadership position, whether others knew it or not, they were working against that position because it was a scarce resource. And so I got a chance to deal with that, which was a really pivotal moment in my career. Then I started shifting my focus. I wanted to start working more in the nonprofit space. And that's when I really started moving into healthcare. So I had a large chunk of my career was in healthcare, as an independent consultant, and then also as a chief communications officer for a nonprofit healthcare company. And what was really awesome about that is because I loved this idea of working where the mission wasn't necessarily to only make money. Yeah, you have to make money as a nonprofit or you're not going to be around. But there is this closer affinity to this mission of doing good in the world. And boy, did that sing with my heart. So that experience was very demanding. And I really learned how to balance myself more, because what was happening is I was giving so much to that career, working ridiculous hours, serving on boards, working evenings and weekends with special events. And I started to really lose track of who I had become, what was important to me, and what I was passionate about. So that was a wonderful experience in that it really gave me the impetus to move back into a private consulting practice, which eventually led to me being this founder of this nonprofit, Aspire to STEAM, which is a passion project for me. So that's the trajectory. And I know you wanted me to think about pivotal moments too. And I have to tell you, Katie, that was such a wonderful exercise for me. Because I really, yeah, it really was. Because you know how you get in your life and you're just going, and you've got families, and I'm in a sandwich situation. I have a daughter in her mid-20s. She's married. Her husband and their 2 dogs are living with us while she's going and finishing up dental school. I have aging parents, who are, again, so I'm the sandwich generation, for those of you who have heard of that. I am the, whatever is in the middle of my sandwich. I think it's a nice chicken breast with some arugula and a nice avocado mash. So at any rate, but it really was awesome to think back on those pivotal moments. And, did you want me to just dive into that, Kate, or did you, before I?
Yes, please. Let's dive in. There's so much to unpack here. I'm so excited to get into it.
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right. So I think, you talk about pivotal moments, and this is about leading fearlessly, right? And there's so many people that come to leadership, and they want to be leaders, or they don't want to be leaders, but they're put into a leadership role, It's kind of good just to sit back. And I love this exercise because, one of the first things I did is I was looking for early indications of leadership. Okay. So I started first grade when I was 4 years old. Okay. And I remember it was one of my first earliest child memories, Katie. I remember going to my parent teacher conference in first grade as a 4-year-old, and the teacher telling my parents that the students in the class look up to Cheryl. They listen to Cheryl. But Cheryl has to be more mature. She has to act more mature. So as a 4-year-old, that's a lot to give. I had no idea what maturity. Oh my goodness. Okay. So, but that stuck with me, and I didn't know why she said that. I walked away from that session, though. Unfortunately, my parents weren't happy with me because they thought I was being naughty in class and needed to be more mature. But that was, I kind of, that's an early indication. Then I remember in fourth grade, I had a teacher that just said, Cheryl, I want you to be on the patrol. So back then they didn't have crossing guards into the schoolyard. So the students were the crossing guards. So essentially, I was a member of the patrol, and I did that for a week. And she says, well, I want you to be captain of the patrol. And she gave me this little badge, which I put on my little orange sash. And I'm like, okay. So I was always a responsible child. But that's really when I started getting bullied by my peers, okay, for being singled out. So I was grateful for that because, it was painful. But at the same time, I started to learn how to navigate that. And even at that young age, that ability to navigate ended up serving me well. And it really did, even through high school, when again, I loved to dance. Okay. I'm a little dancing machine. And so, early on in seventh grade, I had tried out for pom-poms and I made it and I was so excited and I loved choreography. And so, I became a captain of pom-poms in my, grammar school. And then in high school, I also, was a captain of the pom-pom squad. And, there's a lot of stuff that gets unbundled in that, with feelings from other girls that didn't make the squad and, being picked on and made fun of. I had people bark at me because I was apparently a dog. And, so you work those out, but the leadership was there. Okay. Then I moved into my career and, in banking specifically, I was starting to get some recognition and, but I wasn't getting the reward. Katie, go figure this out. Okay. Maybe some of your listeners can identify this, with this. So, I was very fortunate that I was working with some wonderful people, in banking in the corporate area and I was working really, really hard and doing a lot of work that was being recognized. And yet I noticed that the men were all getting promotions to officer positions. And I was not. And yet I was doing their work. And then of course I'm sitting here going, well, I'm sure I'm not making as much money as them because already back then it was already well known that you were lucky to be making 70 cents on the dollar if you were a female working in any kind of business activity and most likely less. So this is where I had my first opportunity to really, gauge and feel confident in my self-worth and ask, in a respectful way for what I deserved. And I remember the first time I laid it all out, it was kind of like, well, you're not ready yet. It's not something that we typically do. So that gave me the impetus just to kind of start looking around for other opportunities. And I found that there were some companies willing to pay me more. And so I did go back to my boss at the time. And I said, I really appreciate the feedback that you gave me. I want you to know, though, I really believe that I deserve being an officer of the bank and deserving to be paid appropriately for the value that I bring. And of course, I gave other, extenuating background data, to help him, bring that forward to his higher ups. And I said, oh, and I know I'm going on vacation, next week. But I want you to know that, I am really looking forward to your feedback on this. And, I am entertaining other positions, which I was. I didn't lie about it. I did it. And so then that week started, my vacation week started. And on the second day of my vacation, I have 3 of the highest ranking officers of the bank came to my door to congratulate me on becoming one of the first women officers of the bank. And they did bring me flowers, which to this day makes me cringe, but it was very kind of them. I'm not flowers. Oh, here you go. Here I am. I'm the beauty queen accepting the flowers. Oh, yeah, I have a problem with that, but don't hold it against me. So at any rate, I was grateful. And thank God for doing this. And this is what I want to tell your listeners right now. Had I not done that early in my career, my earnings would have been lagging behind for decades. Because I did that, every time I went on a job interview, or was looking at advancing in other careers or what have you, and I had to put down a salary level, it was higher. And that is so important to do early on, because what you create, whatever your foundation is, that's your launching pad. And if it's not as strong as it can be, you'll be hampered in your earning potential throughout your years. So I was really grateful to that banking experience. And then corporate education, another pivotal moment, because there was so much competition. And that's what business is about, right? Although I have a different belief on that. I'll talk to you a little bit about that later. I really personally don't believe in competition, because I really do believe if we are being the best version of ourselves, who can compete with you, Katie, being the best Katie? There's no other one who can do it. Okay. So anyhow, but that's when I started to become more of a conscious self leader. Okay. Really focused on leading myself in a way that felt authentic to me. And I also really started to care less about being liked. Okay. That didn't mean I was mean. It didn't mean I was, I was tapping into my inner bitch, though I do have one. But it really was just being less concerned. Okay. As long as I'm being authentic and kind and respectful, which is in my DNA. Okay. If someone likes me, great. If they don't, great. I can't be liked by everybody, which as a leader is one of the most important things. If you can come to terms with that, it will be easier and you will have greater impact. Yeah. So those were some pivotal moments. That's the trajectory. And any questions that you might have at this point, Katie? I have a tendency of I get passionate about things and I just barf up stuff. So
it's all great advice. I want to kind of maybe go back a little bit and talk about the experience you had with sexism and bullying and discrimination early in your career, because I think we would like to think that doesn't happen anymore. And I know we've made really incredible strides, but the truth is there are still very heavily male-dominated industries, and those things are still happening. What are some tips you can share with listeners who are experiencing that? How did you get through that without just really losing confidence in yourself?
Oh yeah. Well, for me, notice how I took a deep breath. My major challenge, okay, and it also is my piece of advice for overcoming those kind of experiences, is to stay calm and balanced when you're faced with those, I call them bullying behaviors. I mean, it all kind of falls in there. It's usually someone is intimidated or someone is angry. There's projection. There's all these other things that are coming to the fore, but it's not you. It's them. It's in someone else. Okay. So it's finding your place of calm. And I'm a passionate person and I care very deeply about my work. I work hard. I'm respectful. I'm kind. And a lot of times stuff would happen that was, that kind of oppression or sexism, bullying, jealousy, and it would take me off task. I would be, what? Where did it come from? So early on, when I was faced with bullying behaviors in the workplace, whether they were directed by a male or a female colleague, no matter what, I used to do two different things, and neither one of them were good. Let me tell you. First of all, I was not calm. I wouldn't breathe. I would catch myself really taking in very little oxygen, which to everybody who's listening, your oxygen, you breathing deeply in and out is your secret weapon. Okay. Because women have a tendency of breathing in very little oxygen and exhaling deeply. Okay. So the good news is because we exhale deeply, we get rid of a lot of toxins. All right. But because we don't bring in enough air, usually our brains aren't working as they normally would when we're breathing well. So what I would do when I wasn't breathing right and getting myself a bit worked up is I either would shut up, I would shut down totally, Katie, and then I would stew in it. And that made me emotionally and physically sick. And then, the monkey chatter that people say, you got the stuff going on in your head over and over again, blah, 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 blah. It's all poisonous crap. I was really good at doing that. The other thing that I would do is I would flex in the opposite direction. I'd do a 180, and rather than shut up and stew, I would speak up in a heated way that 9 times out of 10 would make matters worse. And part of it is because I'm a bit verbose. Okay. So nothing worse than having somebody who's verbose, who's pretty good with their words, launching at you. Okay. So that was my problem. So what I ended up, once I was conscious of what I was doing, and that's half the battle. I mean, it's an inside job. That's why I say be a self-leader, and I'll talk more about this. It's an inside job. It really is. If you want to be a leader, you better be a self-leader first. Okay. So for me, dealing with those types of extreme behaviors that just felt so crappy, I had to strike a healthy balance between those two extremes, right? And what I ended up doing, I really honed in on 3 strategies for becoming a self-leader, which, by the way, when COVID hit, I ended up writing 3 books on each of those 3 strategies. Yeah, well, when you have a book inside of you and it's threatening you, it's like, you better get this out before you die, Yeah, and COVID did a really good job of death is imminent. It's here. It's knock, knock, knock. Oh, I shouldn't have done that. I've got dachshunds and I just knocked. Oh, they are very motion sensitive. At any rate, I'm a bit dramatic too. Jeez. Okay. So the first strategy was what I talked about in my very first book. It's a cute little book. Called How to Be a Woman in Business. But the punchline is I really was focusing on helping people be true to themselves. Okay. And that I found was the key. One of the critical pieces is really being true to yourself. Who are you? What makes you tick? And a lot of people don't know, because they're looking at the outside world all the time. Oh, that looks good. And sometimes they start aligning themselves with someone other than themselves, or with an idea that really doesn't resonate with them. And it's easy to do. We all do it to some degree, because we have a tendency to really not do the inner work. And for many years, this whole idea of self-help kind of got a bad rap, because it's like, no, you need to care for other people. Well, I'm a firm believer. If you care for yourself first, it's kind of like the whole analogy with put your air mask, put your mask on first before you mask up your children on the plane. So what I did in that book, and all my books they follow a similar pattern. I give an overview on a way someone could start to look at things differently in their life that might feel better, then I interweave all these stories of other people, not just me, because that would be boring. I like to bring in other experiences that other people have. And then I put together exercises. I have several coaching credentials, which I really don't even talk about because it's just part of who I am. But I've picked up a lot of tools along the way, and I've taken those tools, and one of the tools in this first book, I call it the red book. Each book is a different color. It's called the 7 Circles, Your 7 Circles. And what I'm doing is I'm giving people prompts to help them begin to understand and articulate their personal truth. And I'll give you an example. I won't go into all of them, but I have them draw a circle, and then for each circle, they're asked a question, and then, I ask them to write in their responses, and they can do the framework over and over again all throughout their lives, because let's not kid one another. Your authentic self will evolve. Okay? It's always evolving. In fact, that's the one thing you can count on until you cease to exist on this physical plane. You will always be evolving. So it's really important. I recommend people do this exercise once a year, usually at the beginning of the year when they've got that New Year's, whoo, what am I going to accomplish this year? So, for example, the first circle, I asked people to reflect back on their childhood. When you were a child, what games made you feel good when you played them? What did you love to play? Did you play any make-believe games? That's really pivotal when you see someone playing make-believe games. And then, if so, who did you make believe to be? What did you do? And then I'm asking him basically to list in the circle. It doesn't have to be in any order. Just do free form list, or if you like list people, do it itemized 1 through 10 or whatever. And then for each of the 7 circles, you're doing the same exercise. And then when you're done, you kind of sit with the circles and you start looking for either statements that are shared, like they show up in a couple different circles. You're also looking for statements when you read them, you feel good. You know what I mean? You're like, ooh, yeah, I like that. That feels like me. That feels right. So that's one of them. The other strategy is something that I focus on in the second book, which is how to be a woman in technology. And it's, focusing on matters that matters most. Focusing on what matters most. I can talk, maybe. Maybe we'll see how I do on this one. So with this book, again, follows the same format, but I have an exercise in this book that's a little bit more detailed, and it is essentially a book and the exercise rather, that helps people get tuned in to what their needs are, their emotional needs. Because again, we talk about to be a self-leader, you have to be the best version of yourself. Well, one way to be the best version of yourself is to just get a small emotional need met that may not be met. And a lot of us don't even know what our emotional needs are. So this book really goes into, there's a wonderful assessment, and you take it and it goes into, your emotional needs. And I remember because I do this assessment on myself all the time. I remember a time I took the assessment, and what really showed up high for me, that was very, very important for me, was this emotional need to be heard. And I realized it was because I was in a situation where my parents, I was having a lot of struggles with them and their health, and they weren't listening to what I had to say. And they really never really cared much about my career. My dad always wanted me to be a school teacher, and the fact that I went into business just bothered him. So, they would ask me, well, how was your day? And I would tell them about what I was doing, and they're like, they would just completely tune me out. So I realized I had this need to be heard, and I took the assessment, and what I also guide people through is not only identifying the need, but then what do you do with that? So one of the keys is to take a small step in a direction that you're passionate about, something that you really want to do or enjoy doing. And it dawned on me that I loved acting. When I was in college, I didn't want to try out for a play, but I had to because I was a TV and broadcasting major. And so as a senior in college, I try out for a play. I get the lead and I loved it. And I thought, well, what would happen? Here I am. I'm an adult. What would happen if I tried acting again? So I just auditioned for a play. I felt so good auditioning. That helped me connect to my passion. It helped me get an emotional need to be heard, because as an actor, everyone's listening to you on the stage. And wouldn't you know, I got lucky again and got cast as the lead. my first time out. I mean, this is not the case in all aspects of my life. It just happens to be in this particular one. I think I was a performer in a past life, so it came easily to me, but it gave me that little juice that I needed. And that's something that we have to remember. To be authentic leaders, a lot of times life isn't going the way that you want it. And it happens a lot. You may not be getting the recognition at work. You may not, but if I can identify an emotional need and get that need filled elsewhere, you don't have to get it filled at work. And even with your families, you know what I mean? If things aren't going well in your family, what emotional need do you need? Maybe your family members can't fill that need for you. You can get it someplace else, and it could be something small. So that's the second strategy. Again, getting those emotional needs met. And then the third one, ironically enough, Katie, was the focus of book number 3. I told you I was on a writing rampage. And all the books are available on Amazon. Although I understand, we're boycotting Amazon now. We're not happy with them. So, they do some good things, and they're very good to authors. So for those of you out there who want to write a book, they've got wonderful tools where you can do it cost effectively and get your message out there, because the world needs people like you are, Katie, right now with your podcast, to get your message out there. We need you. We must do it. Okay. So the third book, really my goal there, and this was a strategy that really helped me out throughout my entire career. It's learning how to be an emotionally intelligent self-leader. Okay. And emotional intelligence, it's been around for a long time, but unfortunately back in the day, especially when I was working on a master's degree, this was my focus of my thesis. And unfortunately, it was so academic back then that people just didn't feel like they could connect to it. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to write a book where emotional intelligence, and again, with other stories of leaders, showing the readers how they developed their emotional intelligence. I wanted to develop something that could be really easy and meaningful and not using a lot of jargon and everything else that gets thrown out there, in the academic spheres when it comes to emotional intelligence. So I really wanted to make it accessible and transparent and practical. So there, of course, is another a tool, another assessment that helps people understand what their emotional intelligence superpowers are and how they can activate them so they literally can be the leaders in their own lives. And I have found that really is the key. So, and that really dives into the last section I know you wanted me to tackle, which was aspiring, leaders. Okay. What advice? So the key there, and this is going to sound a little strange, so stay with me on this one. I'll bring it all back at the end. Your best bet, if you aspire to either becoming a leader in your family, in your business, in your community, if you're aspiring to be a leader or you're aspiring to be a better leader, do not seek out leadership positions. I know. Did you gasp? Who gasped?
A little bit, yes.
Did you gasp? Okay. So now stay with me. I really think you got to be organic about this. Okay. People know when someone's coming at them and they want to be the leader. Okay. So you can make this easy on yourself. Okay. Just be the best version of yourself. Okay. Be that self-leader. And then what happens is that your leadership style, your leadership mission, it will unveil itself. And then what will happen is the right leadership opportunities come to you. Because the worst thing you can do is to be a wonderful leader and be in the wrong environment. It will kill your spirit. The key is to be authentic. All right. Again, if you're the best version of yourself and you've done your inner work, your leadership style, your mission will unveil itself. Those leadership opportunities, if they are the right ones for you, will come to you. So that's the first one. The second piece of advice is please, please, please allow yourself to be human.
Yes, that's so
We're
important.
so big. Yeah. And we're so big at categorizing everybody into races and sexes and preferences. No, just be human. Because I believe, in addition, the best leaders, they make mistakes. Okay. And they own those and they learn from them. They endeavor, to do better. Okay. And yet though, the learning is where the beauty is. Gosh, if I didn't screw up, I would not have really been able to evolve. And that would have been sad. So mistakes are good, but we got to go against the grain. We have a culture of perfectionism, which is killing our spirits. I have a friend, Michelle Molitor. She is a wonderful author, and she wrote a book on being like flossomly imperfect. Be a flaw and be flawed and be awesome. And she really knows her stuff. So Michelle Molitor, for anyone who's out there looking for some guidance there, wonderful coach. So again, allow yourself to be human. A third one to think about, be very careful to not emulate the leaders around you. We've got lots of bad examples of leadership, okay? So you don't want to emulate other leaders around you, even the ones that you admire, okay? And that might sound a little unorthodox, but listen to me. Note what it is that the leaders that you admire, know what it is that you love about them, and then find your own unique version of that. That will feel authentic. It will feel good. Okay. It's like putting on a dress or a shirt or a pair of pants. It just feels so good. Oh, yes, yes, yes. Okay. And then you're comfortable in them, right? It's not binding you. I'm big on comfort. If you saw what I was wearing right now, oh, she really is rocking that comfort. So another thing, and I'll kind of, another piece of advice is remember, and we said this a little bit earlier on, Katie, is that leadership really is an evolution. Okay. And it starts with you constantly discovering and rediscovering yourself as you evolve, and you will evolve. It's the one thing that you can count on. And I'm going to give everyone a really good piece of advice here for when to know it's time for you to do some more inner work. If you're feeling crummy all the time, okay, and you're just not feeling good, that means, time to evolve. You've changed in a unique way, and there's something that's not matched. So that's why I tell people, do the exercises. When I was in my coaching profession, I would say, do the 7 circles, take a emotional needs assessment, do your emotional intelligence assessment. What insights are you gaining? And again, the book kind of walks through how you can do that on your own. Okay, so I know I gave a lot of advice there. I know it could kind of sound confusing. My last 2 takeaways here, always remember, treat yourself with respect and kindness. Be respectful and kindness to yourself, okay? And be kind to yourself, and treat others with respect and kindness. Again, think about how you would treat someone else that you really loved and cared for, because we have a hard time being respectful and kind to ourselves. And I think that's what makes us judging of other people. And judging feels so crappy. So you got to just tune into the feelings. I mean, I'm very intellectual. Okay. I like to balance. And when I talked about balance, it was really balancing my intellect with my intuition. Okay. And that's just a wonderful exercise for everyone to learn. Not easy. But we all can do it. We all can do it. We have great capacity. So again, be intellectual, but then how do you feel about this? So you came up with this great strategy. Now try it on. Imagine yourself doing it. How do you feel about it? Does it feel good? Great. Go for it. If something doesn't feel right, then tweak. Okay. I didn't say twerk. I mean, I guess twerk could be good too. So anyhow, and then the second thing, when you lead with love. And this is tough because love is still a foreign word in business. And when it comes to leadership, it's really a foreign word, because to be loving and kind to somebody and to lead with love was perceived as a weakness for so many decades that I think people are still, they got the residue on them. They're trying to shake it off, it's like stepping, and we both have dogs, but it is like wearing a shoe that has a really detailed sole and you step in dog shit. Okay. It's hard to get that off your shoe. Okay. So you want to keep that word, in your vernacular. And again, you want to start by loving yourself, right? Okay. And when you're leading with love, you don't have to tell people you're leading with love. One day you may feel good sharing your wisdom when someone says, you're such an awesome leader. What is it that you do? Oh, I lead with love. Well, what does that mean? Okay. But I'm telling, and I want people to think right now, for now, it's, just know that that's what you're endeavoring to do. You don't have to tell anybody that you're doing it. And to be with love, again, you have to be loving. It starts with self-love, which brings us right back to the beginning. With one of my pieces of advice, being true to yourself and knowing who you are. That's how you get to a place of loving yourself. And to work on this, and you make that a priority for yourself, you will see that it will have a positive impact on you and everybody else in your sphere. It just kind of happens. It's like magic. Okay. And then when you do it consistently, the rest of your life just unfolds in so many wonderful ways. You cannot even imagine it. You start to feel delighted and fulfilled and inspired every day. And then one day you might not feel that way, but then at least you've got a roadmap on how to get back on track. And that's my greatest wish for everyone, that you find a roadmap that resonates with you on your leadership journey. And you know that it's not always going to be perfect. Okay. And that you'll get back on track because you've got that roadmap. You've done it once before and you'll do it again.
Oh my gosh, Cheryl, all of that advice is so amazing. And there's so much to unpack there. Thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to share all of that wisdom with us. I know this is going to be one of those episodes that I'm listening to over and over again to get every little nugget out of it.
Oh, that is so kind. I think that for me, that's the greatest gift. If one person is out there and, it kind of resonates with them and they can do something that might make them feel good in their lives, then, my work is done.
That's wonderful. I so appreciate you.
Oh, well, my pleasure. And I so appreciate you for what you're doing. And I'm sending out just awesome energy to all your listeners. You got this.
Head down to the show notes to connect with Cheryl on LinkedIn and to go to her website where you can get copies of all 3 of her books. Thanks for tuning in to Lead Fearlessly, Strategies of Confident Women Leaders. If you've been inspired by today's episode, don't keep it to yourself. Share this episode with a friend who could use a confidence boost. Remember to subscribe so you won't miss out when we drop our next season. And if you found our conversations valuable, please leave us a 5-star review. Your support helps us continue to amplify the voices of incredible women leaders and inspire more fearless female trailblazers. We'll see you next time.